Good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to this webinar to discuss more about COVID-19 and its impact and implications. My name is Vinamra Srivastava. I'm the CEO for CapitaLand Business Parks in India. CapitaLand is one of the largest real estate investors and operators in the country, where we operate and own more than 20 million square feet of space spread across IT parks, logistics, and data centers. By being one of the largest developers of IT parks, we are very fortunate to have more than 150,000 people who work in our parks, and many of whom will be tuned in today for this session, and we look forward to have an engaging discussion. It is my absolute honor and great fortune to welcome Dr. V Ravi. Dr. Ravi needs no introduction in these times, but I will still try my best to summarize his excellent achievements and why we are so fortunate to have him with us. Dr. Ravi is the nodal officer for genomic confirmation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus for Government of Karnataka, and he's a member of the task force on COVID-19 for Karnataka. He was formerly the senior professor and head of department of neurovirology at NIMHANS in Bangalore. He holds one European patent and has published over 180 papers in various publications. He's a WHO consultant for AES, influenza, and HIV. And Dr. Ravi is also a distinguished international fellow of AMS TMH. He's a visiting professor of microbiology and immunology for University of Liverpool, UK, and fellow of National Academy of Medical Sciences and Indian Academy of Sciences. He's a fellow of WHO and a fellow of Commonwealth Medical. He's also on the scientific advisory board of the Sputnik 5 vaccine. And Dr. Ravi is an expert in public health virology and diagnosis of viral infection. So in a nutshell, he is one of the most competent authorities in the entire country today to share his knowledge and wisdom and do's and don'ts on everything to do with COVID. We have received a lot of questions before this webinar got live on various aspects of COVID. How we will run this session is that we will pass it over to Dr. Ravi, who will take us through a very brief presentation and the messages that he would like to communicate on COVID-19. And after that, we will have a dialogue together where we will try to address most of the questions that we have received before the webinar. So with that and without further ado, Dr. Ravi, a very warm welcome and thank you so much for taking our time from your busy schedule to engage with our participants. I hand it over to you, please.
Thank you, Vinamra, and thank you, CapitaLand, for asking me to do a session on COVID-19. So it's my pleasure to be talking to you people. And more importantly, I learn each time I talk to people. So that's my selfish interest in
You're being very humble, Dr. Ravi, as always.
Okay. So what I will do in the next, I hope all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Next 20 minutes, I will try to summarize what I want to share with you people. A disclaimer, my information, the information in this talk will be based on published literature, not from social media. I do not have a doctorate from WhatsApp University. I have no conflict of interest to declare. I have no shares in any vaccine company or software companies for that matter. And I try to be factual and not prescriptive because I believe I should not choose for others. I certainly don't allow others to choose for me. Ravi Bhatt from CapitaLand gave me a guidance. I asked him, what do you want me to do? And these are the points he put across and said, could you cover some of these aspects? This is a lot to cover in 15 minutes, but I'll try my best. On the second wave and the reasons behind it, vaccines, that's a hot topic, all the vaccines and their efficacy against the variations. Black fungus or mucormycosis, something that people are scared about. And then, of course, the great stress. And of course, the last one was a very wishful request saying, when can we be mask-free? We'll come to that. COVID-19 was a disease that was first discovered late in 2019. The acronym stands for coronavirus-induced disease. And very soon, within a month or 4 weeks, we knew it is a virus transmitted by the respiratory route, predominantly by droplets. Droplets you cannot see. When somebody breathes, coughs, or sneezes, millions of droplets are released. If they are big, when I say big, they're 5 micron or more. They travel up to 1 to 2 meters and fall down to the earth because of gravity. They are smaller than 5 microns. They can be suspended in the air for a longer time. And if it is closed spaces, they can be suspended for 3 to 6 hours. If it is open spaces, they get carried away by the raft of the wind. So one of the best vaccines and the best methods to protect is to wear masks. If nobody wears masks, there is a 90% chance of transmission. You can get it anywhere. Wherever there is more than one person, there are 2 people, you have a chance of getting COVID. If the person who has symptoms and is known positive is wearing a mask, you reduce transmission by 70% and you still have a 30% chance of getting it. If the person who is not infected wears a mask, it is 30%. If the person who's infected wears a mask, the transmission is 5 to 10%. If everybody wears a mask, the chance is less than 1%. So there you go. Masks are here to stay. That's the bad news. I answered the last question. COVID is a disease that there's a spectrum of manifestations. Everybody who gets infected with the virus, first of all, it's a new virus. Mankind has not seen. Nobody is immune. You can be immune either through infection and recovery, or you have to get vaccine. Just remember that, it's basic. Otherwise, the virus will catch you. The virus catches you. Majority of the people are mildly symptomatic. As the pyramid shows, 80% of the people will have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. And 10 to 15% of them will progress in the second week. That's very, very important to remember. After the virus enters in the second week, they will progress to breathlessness, dip in their oxygen concentration, cough, and they may require hospitalization and oxygen supplementation. 5% unfortunate people will progress even more. This also happens in the second week. And they may go on to require ventilatory assistance, so they land up in ICU. What are the common symptoms? Fever, cold, running nose, dry cough, breathlessness, extreme fatigue, muscle pain. Some people have diarrhea, and recent loss of smell and taste is also one of the symptoms. Now, the first week of illness, you need to monitor yourself. Unfortunately, most people neglect that time. If you don't get into a hospital, you're in home isolation, fine. You need to monitor yourself. And when I say monitor, take a notebook, note down your symptoms. And every day, note down whether it was better than yesterday, it is worse than yesterday, or it's the same. Point number 1. Point number 2, get yourself a pulse oximeter. Put it on your finger, learn to use it properly, go to YouTube, put it on a flat surface, don't let it dangle on your finger like this. That's not the way to measure oxygen. It should be flat on a surface, and take the reading after 30 to 45 seconds when the oximeter is stabilized and the wave pattern is uniform. At least 5-6 times during the daytime when you're awake, take the readings in a notebook, monitor. Normal pulse oximeter readings are 94% and above. 6-minute walk test is an extremely good test. Take the pulse oximeter reading, walk inside the room that you're isolating yourself briskly for 6 minutes and take the reading again. If the second reading is 5 points a percent below the first reading, that is the first indication you are worsening. Be in touch with a doctor right from day 1. Eat nutritious food, take vitamins and zinc supplement. If people go from the lower part of the pyramid to the moderate. That happens in the second week between the 6th to 12th day. Indications are worsening of symptoms, fever increasing, dry cough increasing, breathlessness, and of course, pulse oximeter reading going down. So these are very, very important. And after people recover from COVID, also there is a post-COVID phase, because there are complications that one can get depending on how severe the disease was and what comorbidities you have. And some people are left with lung incapacitation or fibrosis. So you need to do respiratory exercises. There are many available on the internet, on the YouTube. Breathing exercises, pranayama, blowing a balloon and things like that. Of course, throughout you have to maintain a positive frame of mind and do things that will calm your mind, like yoga. A number of systems are involved in the post-COVID: heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, pancreatitis, and of course, among infections, the most dangerous is black fungus or mucormycosis. Pandemics are known to occur in waves. Many of us warned the government that there's going to be a second wave and it will be bigger, but our warnings were not heeded. And large number of events conspired together to produce a huge wave. It's a tsunami, actually. Mainly, it started as small super spreading events in apartment complexes, in crowded places, partying, cinema halls, hostels, students, congregations. Then, of course, this was amplified by further crowding in closed spaces, rallies, elections, religious congregations. And to top on all this, the icing on the cake was the emergence of new mutants, which we call as variants, which were more infectious. So all these contributed. So we have learned a bitter lesson. This will not work in future. You cannot have religious congregations. You cannot have rallies. You cannot have elections. Definitely for 1 year. I hope people will adopt it. All of us are responsible, and so is government. The second wave was steeper. It was much bigger. Mainly, we were caught with poor planning. Our bed capacities were not enough. Oxygen short supply was there. Essential drugs were missing. These are lessons for the future. If a third wave comes, not if, it will come. The question is when. We'll discuss it. We'll have to have all the things that we had for the second wave sustained for the third wave. It's not you close shop and say, okay, we are back to normal. One of the key factors that drove the second wave was variants, but it was not the only one. Remember, viruses and virologists like me are blamed for the pandemic. It's people who behaved irresponsibly by not protecting themselves, knowing fully well that masks and social distancing and hand washing are very important. So the virus has mutated. Viruses will continue to mutate, especially the viruses that have RNA like coronavirus. They have an inherent advantage. When they copy themselves, they make a mistake. So they will accumulate mutations. And when these mutations are in key areas, it will affect virus behavior. There are 4 major viruses that have emerged in the last 5 months. And these are viruses that have more infectiousness compared to the parent virus. The first was detected in UK. It's called UK variant, B.1.1.7. Next was the South Africa detection. That's called South African variant, B.1.351. Next, the Brazilian one, P.1. All this between November to January. Then came, of course, the mutant that was detected in India, which is fondly referred to as the double mutant or the Indian variant. Now, all these 3 are now classified as variants of concern because they spread more in the public, and there is data in the laboratory that they spread much faster. A flavor of what is happening in Karnataka. We have been doing sequencing for virus. Those 1,000 genomes we have sequenced, and you can see we find all the variants excepting the Brazilian one. In the right side bottom, there is a table. B.1.17 was around 11.5%. only 6 South African ones, but the Indian mutants account for almost 25%. And more importantly, the Indian mutant is taken over completely in April. It replaced all other mutants, and that is the one that is ruling the roost right now. Whether mutants will emerge in future, it is anybody's guess, but we should expect that they will emerge. Vaccines, there are SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 provided an unprecedented opportunity to make vaccines very quickly. And there are many types of vaccines. Traditionally, viral vaccines relied on growing the virus, the whole viral particle, inactivating it and using it as a vaccine. An example is Bharat Biotech Covaxin. But with COVID-19, newer technologies were used to produce vaccines. One of them, they're all called either genetic vaccines or subunit vaccines. Main method that was tried out for the first time was to piggyback SARS-CoV-2 protein onto other innocuous viruses. So instead of SARS-CoV-2 itself, you put the most important protein of the virus on another virus surface so that it gives good immune response. There are two that are being used currently. One is the Covishield and the other is the Sputnik that is available in India. Both are developed on an adenovirus backbone. America went on to develop genetic vaccines. They used the viral RNA, a portion of it that codes for spike protein, encapsulated into lipid and then delivered it inside the cell. This is a fantastic technology. It has tremendous potential for the future for other infections. The end point for all vaccinations, this is something people have to understand, is protection against severe disease and death. No vaccine gives 100% guarantee against infection. Infection is virus entering and multiplying in your system, may produce mild disease or no disease. But remember, if you are infected, you can still transmit to others. So you have a moral responsibility of wearing a mask after vaccination so that you don't get infected. More importantly, you don't infect your family members and friends and the people whom you come in contact. These are the list of vaccines, their doses, their storage temperatures, and their efficacy. Efficacy is a number game. I always tell people why they are expecting. Human beings are very greedy. They want everything from a vaccine, although it's much simpler to wear a mask. That's the way human beings are. They are not going to change their behaviors overnight. None of us will. And they want maximum from the vaccine. No other viral vaccine in human history has protected against infection. Whether it is polio or measles or any vaccine, influenza, all vaccines guarantee protection against disease, period, and death. Now we want to take a vaccine and we want to go around and do whatever we want to do, and we don't want to get infection. I'm sorry, such a vaccine is not on the horizon. There are trials going on with nasal vaccines. Maybe, God willing, some of them may give you infection and protection against infection. Right now, all vaccines except Johnson & Johnson vaccine are 2 shots. The time between the 2 shots varies. And number 2, 2 weeks after the second shot is when you will get protection. Remember that. Johnson & Johnson has been cleared as a single dose with an efficacy of 70%. This is evidence to say, a very recent paper published in New England Journal of Medicine, one of the best journals in medicine. I have boxed the right corner with the red box for you. It shows you the efficacy of the vaccine against variants. This was one of the questions. All vaccines today do protect against variants. Especially, they prevent serious disease and death. But in terms of getting infected or mild symptoms, vaccines vary. AstraZeneca is not very effective against the South African variant, and so are some of the other vaccines. Covaxin, our own indigenous vaccine, data from National Institute of Virology here very clearly shows, I'll draw your attention to panel C in the bottom of the slide, where you see 3 different colored dots, pink, blue, and orange. What it means is whether it is the parent virus, whether it is the Maharashtrian mutant or the UK mutant, it is able to produce the same level of antibodies, meaning it affords the same kind of protection. This is experiments done in people who are vaccinated with Covaxin, their blood taken and neutralized the virus. So that is good news. And similar news is also available for Covishield right now from United Kingdom. This is data from our own government. In spite of vaccination, people will get infected. After first dose and second dose, both with Covishield and Covaxin, less than 0.5% of people have got infected. But remember, this is in terms of percentage. But right now, in the 1,000 odd people who are listening to me, everybody knows somebody who's got 1 shot or 2 shots of vaccine and turned positive. Turning positive is not, but most of the people who have turned positive, most, I repeat, most, 95 to 98% have not developed serious disease or died. A small proportion, unfortunately, have died. The government of India revised the schedule for AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine based on both science and sense. Science, because when the trial was conducted and the results were published in Lancet, the second dose people were divided, 25,000 people were divided into 3 groups. Those who received vaccine at 4 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and 12 weeks. All of them were protected against disease, but antibody response was very good in those who took the vaccine at 12 weeks. That is science. Sense. What is sense? United Kingdom took a bold approach and said, we are going to give it only at 12 weeks because we want to cover as many people as possible with 1 dose, and then we will give the second dose. They effectively did it, and their data shows that even with 1 dose, you get 40 to 50% protection. So you can pass it on to the people directly. So they stuck to 12 weeks based on this Government of India revised. What happens if I get infected between the doses? Since you got infected, you have the advantage of getting natural immunity to the virus. Your immune response is active for 3 months. So when it is active, don't disturb it. Wait for 3 months. When your immune response is going down, you take the shot so that you boost it and your response will be longer. That is the reason we say, if somebody is infected, wait for 3 months. Point number 2, when can a vaccinated person give blood plasma for donation? Yes, wait for 14 days after the second dose so that you get the benefit of the vaccine and then you give the blood. Otherwise, your blood cells will be depleted. Anybody who has acute illness, was admitted for some other acute illness, wait for 4 to 8 weeks before you get the vaccine so that you completely recover, your immune system recovers before you get the vaccine. Very recently, it has been shown that vaccine is safe for mothers who are breastfeeding. It has been cleared so they can use, not for pregnant women and not for children. Trials in both these groups are going on. Pfizer has been cleared for children between 12 to 18 in America and Europe. India's Covaxin is undergoing trials, got permission. Results will be available in 2 to 18 by the month of August. No need to screen yourself either for antigen or antibody. Please don't do your own research. Have trust, faith in scientific literature. Go and take your vaccine. Vaccines are safe. Enough attention has been paid to safety. It has gone through several phases of screening before it's made. It does not change your genetic makeup. It does not give you COVID. Many people say, I went for second shot and I turned COVID positive. Incidentally, you got it when you went for the second shot. It's not because of the vaccine. It does not contain eggs, egg protein. It's not made in eggs. It's made in cell culture. It does not cause severe side effects. Severe side effects are 0.006% or 0.003%. That is the range of severe side effects. Minor side effects, even if you put a normal needle into your elbow, into your arm, you will get pain. So don't expect a chemical that is injected not to produce minor side effects. That is being greedy. Women, it doesn't make infertile, and there's a myth going round in WhatsApp University that during periods, monthly periods, women cannot take vaccine. Absolute rubbish. What is mucormycosis? Mucormycosis is popularly misclassified and misnamed as black fungus. The fungus is not black. The lesions produced by the fungus, because it attacks blood vessels, produces a gangrene, and the whole tissue looks horrifically black. That's why the name black fungus. It is an infection we have seen prior to COVID. At NIMHANS, we have seen black fungal infections of the eye, the nose, and the brain in severe diabetics. The biggest risk factor for black fungus infection is diabetes, either undetected diabetes or somebody who's known to be a diabetic. And there also uncontrolled blood sugar levels, more than 250, 300 milligrams per deciliter of sugar uncontrolled. And second most important risk factor is indiscriminate use of steroids. In the second wave, many WhatsApp University prescriptions said you can take steroids at home. Steroids should be taken under medical prescription, under medical supervision, preferably in a hospital, and only indicated when a person's oxygen concentration is going down, not based on laboratory results. I know many people who have started steroids looking at laboratory results because some markers are high. My professor of medicine used to tell me, we don't treat lab reports, we treat patients. And the only indication for starting steroids is lowering of oxygen concentration. Otherwise, there's no business for steroids. If you take steroids, you will invite complications. So what do you do to avoid black fungus? Anybody who's recovered from COVID needs to be on follow-up. Usually black fungus infections occur a week to 4 weeks to 5 weeks after you recover from COVID. So undergo a regular blood sugar test if you are a diabetic, or even if you're not a diabetic. COVID is known to induce diabetes. So please take your blood sugars. If your blood sugar elevated, then definitely consult a doctor and take treatment for it, to lower your blood sugar. Number 2, do not take steroids on your own. And steroids also, some of the medical practitioners have given elephant doses. That's a risk factor. There's a limit to which you can give steroids to a person per day. 8 milligram is the best. If you go beyond that, you're increasing risk. And of course, early symptoms you have to watch for is headache, like you get in sinusitis, that kind of headache, blurring of vision, drooping of eyelid, pain on the cheek, altered sensation in the cheek. These are important. Early seek medical help whenever you have doubt. Stress is one thread that has run across both infected and non-infected people. Locking down at home for months is a stress. We are not used to it. Knowing you're positive is a stress. Being symptomatic is a stress. Being severe is a stress. Isolation is a stress. So stress is inevitable in pandemic times. The best way to beat stress is take nutritious food, take supplements. There are 101 immunity boosters offered. Many of them don't do any harm, but I don't know if they boost their immunity. They have been centuries old. If you feel good, please take it. I have nothing against it. But to say that ginger will boost, squeezing lemon into my nose will boost, honey with that plus cinnamon plus a little salt, and then take it on an empty stomach and 5 times, all sorts of combinations. Please remember, there is absolutely no foolproof evidence. It's tradition, it's been used, it is safe, it makes you feel good. Feeling good is very important because there is a new science known as psycho-neuro-immune-endocrine axis. I worked on it for a decade at NIMHANS, which means our thoughts, our frame of mind influence the brain, through which The brain controls the endocrine system, and through the endocrine system controls our immune system. This is where time-tested and evidence-based practices like yoga are very important. They stabilize your mind, they calm your mind, and they are known to induce the right kind of protective immune response. Exercise. Most importantly, diet, and highest importance is for good quality sleep. Sleep is essential for a good immune response. My favorite slide, the picture on the left shows you the future. It's a road with a lot of road humps or speed breakers. You don't have a road that is several kilometers without a road hump. Every time there is a road hump, you will have to slow down. What do we slow down? Economic activity. What do we slow down? Crowding events. What do we slow down? Closing schools, colleges. There is a way to monitor when there is a surge. There's a 7-day average that we take of test positivity rate and plot it. The graph on the right, the middle is what we are seeing now. We had a first wave. We had a much, much larger second wave. We are going to definitely have a third wave. There's no doubt about it, because all adults, 100 crore adults, cannot be immunized before December. 2 doses cannot be given. So those who are not vaccinated and those who have not got the infection will get the infection in the third wave. Children are 30 crore. We don't have a vaccine for them. More children are getting infected. There is a graphic below which shows Karnataka data. Whole of last year, March to this year, March, 93,000 children were infected. Between March of this year and May of this year, 1,45,000 children. More children are getting infected. So they will be at a higher risk. I hear lousy arguments saying that no, it is not seen anywhere in any other part of the world. I think these people have not read and looked at literature. 2,500 kids have died in Brazil in 2 months during the second wave. We have 30 crore children. 1% of them get infection, and in that, 10% of them get hospitalized. 1% of 30 crore is 3 crore. 10% of that is 30 lakhs. Out of that, 10% are serious. Then 3 lakhs, we don't have that kind of beds or intensive care units or pediatric ventilators. Stop arguing. Better assume children are going to get infected. Don't panic. Teach children, talk to them, tell them wearing mask and maintaining distance is important. Let us have debates on whether we have to open schools continuously or interrupted or online and wait for the vaccines. All adults who are not vaccinated in the current wave will also be vulnerable. Parents have to be responsible not to get infection home and give it to children. What do? Wear masks. Wear mask and wear mask. Not 3 masks, but 1 mask properly and change it every day. Maintain distance. Avoid crowds, gatherings, rallies, elections. I hope this is communicated to all concerned, including policymakers and politicians. Closed spaces are highest risk. If you are going to a closed market, make sure there are no crowds when you go, or you're properly protected. Continue to address shortage of oxygen, beds, and essential drugs that is required for the third wave. Get things ready for children for the third wave. We don't have such kind of facilities. Have debates on whether we should open schools or colleges. Summarizing, SARS-CoV-2 is a new pathogen. It is contagious. You can get immunity only through infection or vaccination. If it is neither, the virus will eventually catch you. If you don't want to get caught, then wear masks. The road ahead is bumpy. There are going to be many speed breakers. On a speed breaker, you can't go full speed because you'll be thrown off. So we have to learn to interrupt. We have to learn to impose restrictions, local lockdowns, containment. Thank you. If you have any questions, I will address them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi. That was extremely comprehensive, and I hadn't seen the slides earlier, but I think it is beyond what I expected in terms of scope of coverage. So thank you very much for that. Maybe I'll just pick up from some of the points, Doctor, that you have mentioned, and these are reflective of the questions that we have gotten as well. On the third wave, Doctor, there are people are trying to correlate and say that when the first wave happened, we heard more anecdotal stories about the elderly who were impacted much more or who were critical. And now we are seeing more and more people in the adult or the youngsters age bracket, maybe 25, 30 plus, who are far more impacted. And now we are all talking about the third wave where the kids may get more impacted. So is there any logic or science behind this, or is there any pattern to be made out of how different waves are attacking different age groups?
This is an absolute myth. If you look at distribution of COVID positive cases age-wise, it was equally distributed during the first wave, the second wave, and it will be the same in the third wave. Having said that, the number of children in the first wave were less. Why? Because they were protected. We had lockdowns. They were not getting exposed. The number of the elderly had comorbidities, so they were being admitted to the hospital. So the general impression was, if you're elderly, if you have comorbidities, you'll get the disease. Many young people got infection, but young people again were locked in. During the second wave, we opened up. The largest proportion of people in India is a young country, is between 20 to 45. When you opened up, naturally, that pool is big, and many of them in the pool were neither vaccinated. Remember, from January, we started vaccinating elders. So that pool shrunk. The two pools available for the young and the children. The young were exposed going outside more, they got the infection. And the children were also exposed. The next time around, because we started vaccinating 18 plus, we will cover a lot of people. That pool will shrink. The susceptible pool now will be children and all young adults who are not vaccinated. So this is, you have to understand the fundamental epidemiology. Otherwise, everybody is susceptible. If they are not infected or vaccinated, they will get the infection.
Very logical. You make it sound so easy to understand and so logical that we don't have to guess anymore. You mentioned lockdown, Dr. Ravi, and I know this is a tough one and it may involve a bit of policy-making viewpoint as well. But in your view, as somebody from the medical profession, what should be the ideal strategy for lockdowns? When to shut, for how long, when to open again?
Vinamra, India is very polarized, whether it's politics or religion. Quite often we are a polarized population.
Yes,
we are. First wave, we said lives are very important. And we probably, it was at that time, that was the wisdom. So we locked down and we saw the entire difficulty we created for the marginalized, the migrants and the small businesses and so on. They all suffered. We said, oh, we have learnt our lesson. Livelihoods are important, we said. When Maharashtra was soaring in the middle of March, when people like us were bawling out, everybody said, no, yaar, isme kya hai? Ye sardi hai. It will come and it will go. Some people will lose their lives. So we said livelihoods are important. Till we paid the price for a tsunami. Then we said, oh boy, even lives are important. There is a middle path. That's precisely the reason I gave you a graphic which I think represents what the future is. It's a road with road humps. When you hit a road hump, you have to play down livelihoods and give importance to lives. When there is no road hump, give importance to livelihoods. But remember, all this within a framework of regulated human behavior. The biggest challenge is not availability of vaccines and vaccinating. There are two unpredictable factors I want you to remember. A, human behavior. B, emergence of new variants. The second one, nobody can predict. The first one, we know is important. How responsible we are from now on in terms of wearing masks, avoiding crowds, maintaining distance and hygiene. That is what will decide if a third wave will be big, moderate, or small.
Right, right. Doctor, you had mentioned about the graph in your last slide, and I couldn't help but notice that the future peaks kept getting shorter and shorter. Is that driven by more vaccine coverage? Is that what's
exactly? Vaccine coverage, number one, Vinamra. The second is human beings are slow learners. They ultimately learn. They realize
at a huge cost?
It's better to wear a mask than get a shot. Now you are scrambling for shots, but you don't realize the best vaccine is in your hand and you still can use it. And you don't have to, there's no need for you to go to a crowded market. Right?
Right.
Why can't we be more disciplined? I always say that in a locality, in a city, you say there are 10 blocks. Block 1 to 3 can shop between 9 to 12. Block 4 to 7 can shop between 2 to 5. Can we start thinking like this? Can we move closed markets to open markets? So that whenever there is poor ventilation, virus hangs in the air, I told you very clearly, for 3 to 6 hours. Public toilets are big cauldrons where spread occurs because they are poorly ventilated, and people generally pull down their mask when they go to the toilet, which they should not be doing. And aerosols are created in toilets. So remember, we know all this. Knowledge does not change behavior. Giving alternative. Having worked in NIMHANS, top behavioral institute, I can tell you that fear does not change behavior. Knowledge does not change behavior. Balance of fear and giving facts. Most importantly, giving alternatives. And the alternative I'm giving to everybody in this platform who's listening to me is, do you really have to go to a crowded place for the next 1 year? Can't you do what you want to? Do you need religious congregations and elections for driving economy? Can somebody please teach me? I'm a biology student. I don't know economy, but I'm very strong on common sense.
Yeah. I think what you are saying, Doctor, very clearly is that you ultimately may not need to choose between economy and health, and you can do both if you just use common sense.
Absolutely. And I think we have to bow down to the nature, to the virus. The virus will not cow down to you. It will seek you out and get infected. That's its business. It's survival for the virus.
Yeah, absolutely. Doctor, you talked a lot about the vaccine, and you clearly displayed a lot of data as well. How do you propose to dispel vaccine hesitancy? Despite, as you said, knowledge doesn't always lead to behavioral changes. We have heard many stories where accidentally someone may have died without any correlation to the vaccine, but that becomes a fact, and there's a cause and effect established. How do you think the government and the community should address?
Very true. For the person who died, the family of the person who died, that was an unnecessary death, is the perception. Always, anything that you do in life, you always weigh risks and benefits. And in the case of vaccines, the benefits far outweigh the risk. The risks are there. I'm not saying it is not there. And we do not have at this point of time a screening mechanism to say, Ravi will not get side effects, but Vinamra will get. No, I'm sorry, we don't have that.
Correct.
We have to take a more philosophical approach. What do I want from life? Remember, a great philosopher said, to live is to risk dying. Risk of death is there as long as you're alive. Okay? Take it philosophically. Yes, but millions of people have received vaccine. Hundreds have died. Not even thousands or lakhs. Millions have received vaccine. And if you say, no, I don't want vaccine, fine, it's your choice. But you will have to live responsibility. You are responsible for your protection. Nobody comes and gives you infection. You don't wear mask, you go to a crowded place, you let your guard down, you will get infected because the virus will catch you.
Absolutely. And you were so right about putting things in perspective of how many millions have gotten vaccinated. And even if there have been impact, look at the probabilities. And I also really liked your analogy on side effects, where you mentioned, even if you just, prick yourself with a needle without anything, you will still have pain. So side effects are part and parcel of any medical process that we go through.
It's a chemical being injected into your body and you will get a reaction. It's not part of your system.
Absolutely. But it will absolutely ensure that you don't end up in a hospital bed with serious complications from COVID. So true. Doctor, some of our people had the question on vaccines and in terms of their dosage and efficacy. And we saw how the underlying science is also a bit different from different classes of vaccine. But how come different gaps? So what determines sort of how much gap we should take? And a related question was, can we mix jabs as well? And some studies are going on. Is that okay to do so?
Okay. Both commonly asked questions to me. Number one, what determines the interval for vaccine A versus vaccine B to vaccine C? These have been arrived at based on animal studies when the vaccine was in development. They knew that if you give 2 doses at a particular interval in animals, it gave a reasonable response. Remember, every manufacturer and every individual wants to get protection at the shortest time in a pandemic. So the best dose may be 1 today and 6 months later. But during that 6 months, I can get infected. So why give that chance? So people reduce the minimal interval is what people look at. And that varies from vaccine to vaccine based on animal data that is generated. AstraZeneca was the Oxford University was a very smart group that said, okay, when we're doing a trial, let's have 3 groups for the second dose. And that's how they said 4 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and 12 weeks. All the others may also work at that duration, but it has not been tried. There is no evidence. If I am a regulator, Vinamra, I'm giving you permission, I will look at the data you produce. Vinamra gave me data saying 3 weeks apart, it gives 70% protection. I will say, period. This is emergency use authorization. I'm not going to tell you, you can give it at 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Correct.
It still work. But let us follow what is recommended. Second question, can we mix vaccines? Science says you can, but there is no data. What if you land up with trouble mixing vaccines? A, you can have more complications theoretically. B, it may not be as effective as the 2 doses of the same vaccine. So till data is generated, I know everybody is in a hurry. And if some people argue with me, it's my democratic right. I will take one now, I will take another different vaccine tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, I want another vaccine. Come on. This is public health. Stop being greedy. Get what you deserve. Allow others to get the vaccine. So there is no point in arguing. Please don't do your own research. A time will come for it after the pandemic subsides. You do your research on your own self. Till then, please have some discipline, follow some order, and believe in equity. There is somebody else who's more deserving than you, who's not having access to a vaccine. I think we owe that much to our human race. All vaccines, I repeat, guarantee protection against severe disease and death. What more do you want? What more do you want? And we know from recent results, 3 days back, that immunity will last at least for 1 year. So let everybody get vaccinated. Then we will talk about boosters. Over.
Right. And you also mentioned that as far as the current variants are concerned, the vaccines have proven to be effective. Future mutations, we don't know. We'll have to see as we go along.
Exactly. Effective, my definition of effective is no severe disease, no death.
Yeah. And I think that's a very important point, because amongst the common masses, there is this perception that once I'm vaccinated, then we are Superman and we don't have to worry, and the masks go away, without realizing we're also risking so many others by being a carrier. Right. Very, very valid. Dr. Ravi, I loved your speed bump analogy in terms of looking at the future. We saw the US and the CDC announce some indication of normalcy by not mandating masks anymore, etc. In our view back home, how would you think normalcy would be defined? I mean, when can we say, based on what criteria, that we are truly out of this pandemic? Is it to do with, let's say, metric on vaccination rates, metrics on positivity, metrics on fatality? What will define that we are truly out of the pandemic?
All of them are important for the matrix, but the most important is what percentage, what proportion of population received 2 doses of the vaccine. Even 1 dose is protected. From what we know in infectious disease dynamics and other pandemics, when we reach about 3/4 to 80% of the people having either been infected or vaccinated, then the virus can't find a host. So it goes down, transmission goes down, but it will be there in the background, and it will be like that graph I showed you, small bumps, many bumps will be there, okay? US has made a very grave mistake. They will realize it. UK is still time to avoid their mistake. Today's paper carried a very important article saying that advising postponing opening up of UK by another 4 weeks because they are still in the midst of their 3rd wave. USA, it's in its 4th wave. It's all heroic to say no mask day and things like that. I think it's an absolute foolish strategy, in my opinion. Here is a virus that is transmitted through droplets and is airborne in closed spaces. Hardly 60% of America is immunized. What are we talking? The 40% will catch infection. And the death rates in America are much more than in India because of metabolic diseases being more, non-communicable diseases, and obesity being more. Obesity is a huge risk factor for COVID. So I think it's a matter of time. They will also say, no, wearing mask is important. Just wait.
And you mentioned 75 to 80% of people getting vaccinated, and that's when your bumps are minimal. Is that what, in common parlance, people would equate to herd immunity? Because herd immunity has been a term going around.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Herd immunity actually is a term that is used not in the context of vaccination, in the context of infection. But we know now herd immunity is a myth in coronavirus because variants are emerging. People are getting reinfected. People are getting infected after vaccine shots. So broadly, yes, it would include infection and vaccination.
Hello, Dr. Ravi. This is Anirban. I think Vinamra's network has got some issues.
Yeah.
So Dr. Ravi, we have some more questions, as mentioned, and there's you have mentioned about boosting immunity, about doing yoga, and about some key changes. So, what would be your suggestion about 3 key changes in our lifestyle to strengthen our system to combat COVID or any other virus in the future, doctor?
Let's talk. See, pandemics generally occur predominantly with airborne viruses, respiratory viruses. The other one that did not blow up thanks to great efforts was Ebola. That is also a disease very deadly disease that can come with close contact and touching body fluids of people who are infected. But keeping that aside, we know flu is one that comes in the form of pandemics. History tells us there have been many outbreaks and pandemics, and coronavirus is in that category of airborne virus. What are the 3 things? I think, we know how it is transmitted. So our responsibility is to mask up. Wear masks responsibly, properly, covering both nose and face. And change masks. I've seen people wear masks for weeks together, the same mask, dirty mask. That is not going to help. Okay? And keep changing masks. If they are disposable, dispose them. Don't go by WhatsApp University saying you put it in a cover, you put it in sunlight, and again wear it next day. No. Disposable means disposable. Reusable means every day Remove the mask from your ears, not by holding it in front. Put it in soap water that kills the virus. Dry it, iron it, and keep it ready. Have 3-4 masks and rotate masks so that you don't run off short of mask every day. Number 2, avoid crowds, closed spaces. I don't think anywhere an economics professor has said only crowds drive economy. Can you name any Nobel laureate in economics who said only if you crowd your per capita income and revenue will go up? These are man-made behaviors. You have to respect. I said you have to bow down to the virus. So avoid crowds. 3, most important, there is a vaccine. The vaccine is highly effective. Whenever you get a chance, please come forward and take a vaccine. 3 things, no COVID.
Thank you, Doctor. So another thing which is not related to crowd, but another question we have in our mind, because most of them people are working professionals and we work in cities which may not be our base. So currently we are working from a different city. So now it's lockdown, but after this and after getting vaccination, when do you think we should be able to travel safely? What would be your take on travel, Doctor?
See, there is a gap of 3 to 5 months between waves. Why does it occur in wave form? Let us discuss. First, because we imposed lockdown, human to human contact has been minimized. So infections come down. B, everybody as a human being is scared that he'll catch the infection. So he or she is responsible, washes hands, maintains distance. 1 month later, some interesting political news will come. Some other news will come. All media friends will have something else to focus on. And then we also forget. We slip in our behavior. That's when small events start building up and you get a third wave. So travel is good between waves. If you ask me to guess, between August to October, travel should be okay. But then avoid crowded travel. If it is a must, take shorter flights. Flights are closed spaces. Crowding. 3 people in a row. All of us can't afford business class, but even in business class, it is crowded. It's a closed space. Trains are okay, non-air conditioned. Best is travel by your own vehicle, if you can. I don't know. I told you I will not be prescriptive. I'll be factual. You choose what is best for you. And ask the most important question. Is travel so absolutely essential? Can I not do without this travel? Classical story of Bangalore, in spite of my bawling out, the long weekend around middle of April, which had Ugadi, Ambedkar Jayanti, some holidays, I told, please lock down. People will go from Bangalore to their districts and villages carrying flowers, fruits, and corona. Exactly that's what happened. 2 weeks later, districts started booming. Now districts are high, Bangalore has come down. Remember, human beings carry the virus and human beings bring back the virus. Is travel essential? I do not know. I cannot prescribe for you. Ask yourself. It is absolutely essential? Then do it. COVID has taught us that you can do many things online. It's up to you. There is a risk in travel, especially in public transport that is crowded in closed space. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor, very much. So, Vinamra, over to you. We discussed about travel in these times, and he suggested that, of course, not in between it's okay, but not till the next phase. Yeah.
Another big question. Yeah, my apologies, Dr. Ravi. The signal just dropped off, so my apologies for that. But just on the travel, so does it also mean that as we open up now, each of the cities, as they open up in the next 1 to 2 weeks, and when more mixing of people starts happening, do you think that will then impact the progress that the cities have made further, or is it going to spread the virus again between the urban rural areas much more with that mixing happening?
Yes, yes. Remember, this was an urban-centric disease. Now, in the second wave, it has gone peripheral. Bound to happen. Urban and rural and district is a division created by human beings. Viruses don't have political borders. From every village in Karnataka, if not in every taluk, when everything is normal, there are minimum 10 people coming to Bangalore. They can pick up whatever they want along with COVID and go back. And they have a virgin population there, and it can set off an outbreak. So movement of people will carry virus to areas that have not been exposed earlier. That's the fundamental principle you have to remember. Yes, if you open up, you are going to see a surge. How big it will be will depend on how responsible we are.
Understood. My final question, Dr. Ravi, and again, it's more like a bit of crystal ball gazing, but I come back drawn to the graph that you had shown. If, let's say, the vaccination continues at the pace that it is going on right now and maybe improves a little bit as the vaccine supply gets a bit better, what is your expectation of the time that it will take for India to reach those levels where the bumps and the curves are much smaller and life sort of starts coming back to those herd immunity or those sort of rates? What would be your estimate?
Wishfully, as the government said in papers today, by December, everybody will be vaccinated. Realistically, April 2022 end. So my guess, since you asked, the startup company I'm thinking of starting is known as Viral Astrology. So I will come to you for some venture capital funding. My company predicts that we'll have the third wave between November to February.
So in a way, that is a time for us to also get our act together, both in terms of vaccination and getting the infrastructure ready.
If the government's plans come in as they are thinking, I will be very happy. They say from July, we'll be able to give 1 crore doses a day. That's a very, very tall order, mind you. Today, we are doing in lakhs, 5 times less we are doing. If everything works out well, if we give 1 crore doses a day, in 100 days, we should be able to cover 100 crore adults. So in 6 months, we should be able to cover 2 doses for 100 crore people. I mean, this is all simple high school or elementary school arithmetic. But whether that will happen, remember, not everybody will come to a vaccination center. How innovative we are going to be to take vaccine to people who need it at their doorstep is another challenge by itself.
Yeah. And to actually think about it, East Asian countries, including India, have had good experience and success in many other past diseases on vaccination.
Exactly.
As against the developed
only
world.
Difference, Vinamra, is that this is not like polio, that I can go to doorstep and put it in somebody's mouth.
Yeah.
Okay. Till we probably get a nasal vaccine, that may be a game changer. I don't know. Or a very effective single dose vaccine comes. But there are populations that are not going to come. Then there are populations that cannot register on COVID. There are populations who are disadvantaged, for whom everyday meal is more important than taking a shot. So how are we going to reach there? That is the big challenge.
Understood. This has been extremely helpful, Dr. Ravi. I love the simple analogies that you have given, including WhatsApp University. I'm not going to forget that, probably doing us far more harm. And I think some of the very pertinent questions that you answered, which were very common from people, immunity starts building 2 weeks later after the first shot. The fact that masks can reduce transmission to 1.5%, that slide itself, the first slide, was an eye-opener. After the second dose, the percentage is so minimal in terms of you getting sick. And for the infected people to wait for 3 months. steroids only under medical supervision. And I think end of the day, I would say that the most impactful what I found was the correlation that you shared with us on physical and mental well-being, on how that drives the immune response of the body and thereby impacting whether you get seriously ill or not. And that just goes to show the importance of how in our own minds we need to focus on relieving stress. Dr. Ravi, we have also been getting many more questions live during the session. I know we have run out of time, and if I may propose that we will collate some of those questions that could not be answered today, and maybe we'll discuss with you offline, and maybe even create a short 5-10 minute video clip or something, and then release it to all our audience separately. Sure. If you think that would be helpful, so that we can address all those questions as well.
Anytime, at your service.
You have been very, very kind to us to take out time. We know how busy you are. And I truly think that apart from your day-to-day stressful work in your profession, the very fact that you are taking so much time, Dr. Ravi, to educate people. And these are the times where everybody is guessing so much. And there are so many myths going around that education is as much a medicine today as the actual vaccine is. So for that, we are very, very grateful to you.
I come from a background where I believe education, health, and housing is a fundamental right of every citizen, and there's no business to sell them.
Couldn't agree more with you. And the very fact that when my team told me that you have taken out time, I was not only surprised, but so grateful that it goes with your mission of educating everybody. Thank you so much for taking out the time and answering our queries. We will come back to you and collate another, maybe a short snippet for the remaining questions, which we will collect from our audience offline and release it to all of them and maybe on social media as well. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Ravi. All the very best in your fight.
My last appeal is stay safe, wear masks, maintain distance, and take a shot when you get an opportunity.
Absolutely. We will do our best, and we will keep reinforcing this message to all our community and stakeholders as well. Thank you, everyone who has joined in. I hope you found the session helpful. We will post some of these on social media as well. And if you have any questions, please do write in to us. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi. Please stay safe. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.